At a crumbling seaside auction yard in the Philippines, two desperate sisters were about to gamble their last 4,200 pesos on a rusted shipping container. What started as a final bid for survival took a shocking turn when they pried open the steel doors and found a dehydrated 9-year-old girl hiding inside with a starving stray dog. Mara and Lila Dela Cruz weren't your typical gamblers. For 3 months since burying their mother, they had spent every day watching their world collapse. The sari-sari store seized, the house sold, their dreams dissolved into medical bills that bought nothing but 6 extra weeks of pain. When they discovered Mina clinging to life in container Charlie 9 Delta, clutching a dog named Rusty, and guarding a ledger of human trafficking routes, they had no idea they were walking into a war with the town's most powerful man. The sisters made a split-second choice that would expose a smuggling empire, unite a frightened community, and redefine what it means to be family. What began as a desperate auction bid would become a public reckoning. The port town would never be the same after 2 broken women decided that claiming an abandoned child mattered more than their own safety, and that some families are chosen, not given. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from. And if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow I've saved something extra special for you. The seaside auction yard looked like the enemy to anyone who still had something to lose. But in 20 minutes, 2 desperate sisters would gamble everything on a rusted box, and what they found inside would shatter every assumption the town held about family, courage, and what people will do when they have nothing left. Mara Dela Cruz stood at the edge of the crumbling concrete pier, salt wind stinging her eyes, watching waves of heat shimmer off the rows of abandoned shipping containers. Her mother's rosary wrapped tight around her knuckles, the beads cut into her palm. Good. She needed to feel something other than the hollow ache that had lived in her chest since they'd buried Nane 3 months ago. Beside her, Lila bounced on the balls of her feet like a boxer before a match. 24 years old and still believing the universe owed them a miracle. "This is it," Lila whispered, eyes fixed on the dented grey container at the far end of the lot. "I can feel it, Ate. This is the one." Mara wanted to believe her. God, she wanted to believe anything right now. But the bank notices stuffed in her bag told a different story. The sari-sari store was gone. Their mother's house sold to cover medical bills that bought nothing but 6 extra weeks of pain. They had exactly 4,200 pesos left to their names. Enough for 2 weeks of room and board at Tita Sol's boarding house. Maybe 3 if they skipped meals. Not enough to bet on rust and prayer. "Lila," Mara started, but her sister's hand shot out and gripped hers. Don't tell me it's stupid. Don't tell me the odds." Lila's voice cracked just enough to reveal the fear she'd been hiding behind that manic optimism. "We already lost everything that mattered. What's one more stupid risk?" Tita Sol Domingo's voice cut through the crowd like a rusty blade. "Lot 47, container Charlie 9 Delta. Unclaimed, marked for disposal. Minimum bid 4,000. The crowd laughed. A disposal container, the kind that sat so long in customs purgatory that even the shipping companies gave up on them. Could be anything inside, could be nothing. Usually was nothing worth the steel it came wrapped in. Mara felt the crowd's eyes on them. The Dela Cruz sisters, the ones who couldn't keep their mother alive, couldn't keep their business afloat, now standing here like fools, holding their last pesos like lottery tickets. 4,000! Lila called out, her voice steady despite the trembling in her fingers. The laughter died. Silence hit harder than mockery. Tita Sol leaned forward on her makeshift podium, a stack of shipping pallets covered in faded canvas. "You sure about that, Hija? That thing's been sitting here 8 months. Could be rotted goods. Could be empty. Could be our future," Lila shot back. More silence. Then someone in the back whistled low. A dockhand Mara recognized from the morning fish market shook his head slowly, the way you'd shake your head at a drowning man too far from shore to save. 4,000 once. Tita Sol's voice had lost its theatrical edge. She sounded almost sad. 4,000 twice. Mara closed her eyes, felt the rosary beads press against her bones, heard her mother's voice from some distant memory. Anak, sometimes. Faith looks like foolishness until you reach the other side. Sold, the word hit like a nail in a coffin lid. To the Dela Cruz sisters, God help you both. The crowd dispersed slowly, throwing glances over their shoulders, pitying glances, the kind reserved for people who'd just stepped off a cliff still believing they could fly. Lila turned to Mara, and for just a second, terror flickered across her face. Then she smiled, that wild, unshakable smile that had gotten them through their mother's final days. Fortune favors the foolish, Ate. That's not the saying. It is now. They walked toward container Charlie 9 Delta as the sun began its descent toward the water. Up close, the thing looked even worse. Dents running along one side like someone had used it for target practice. Rust blooming in orange flowers across the corrugated steel. The lock was industrial grade but weathered, the kind that would need a crowbar and determination to crack. Mara pulled the crowbar from her bag, the same crowbar they'd used to pry boards off the sari-sari store windows when the bank came to claim it. Seemed fitting. You ready? Lila asked. No. Me neither. Lila's hand found hers again. Do it anyway. Mara wedged the crowbar into the lock mechanism and pulled. The metal groaned, pulled again. Something snapped. The lock clattered to the concrete, and the door shifted slightly, revealing a thin line of darkness. The smell hit them first. Salt and rust and something else. Something organic. Living, Mara, Lila breathed. Did you hear that? A sound. Faint. Almost human. Mara's heart hammered against her ribs. This was it. The moment that would define whether they'd gambled on salvation or doom. She gripped the container door and pulled. Darkness spilled out like held breath finally released. For 3 heartbeats, neither sister moved. Then Lila fumbled for her phone, thumbs clumsy with adrenaline, and the flashlight beam cut through the shadows. The container wasn't empty. At the far corner, barely visible behind a wall of collapsed cardboard boxes and shredded tarp, something shifted. The beam caught a flash of movement. Too small for an adult. Too deliberate for a rat. Jesus, Mary, Mara whispered, the prayer automatic and useless. A low growl rolled through the space. Not human, animal, protective. Lila stepped forward before Mara could grab her. Hey, she called softly, voice stripped of bravado, gentle now. It's okay. We're not going to hurt you. Another sound. This time unmistakably human. A whimper, small and broken. Mara's nursing instincts kicked in before fear could stop her. She climbed into the container, phone light scanning the debris. The boxes had writing. Medical supplies, pharmaceuticals, all counterfeit from the look of the cheap labels. Someone's failed smuggling operation. There, Lila pointed. Behind the boxes, wedged into the corner like she'd tried to become part of the steel walls, sat a girl. 9 years old, maybe. Skin grey with dehydration. Lips cracked. Eyes too large for her thin face, watching them with the wariness of something that had learned the hard way that adults brought pain. And beside her, pressed against her side, was a dog. Mangy. One ear torn, ribs showing through matted fur. Teeth bared in a snarl that said he'd fight to the death before letting anyone near his person. Oh, baby, Lila breathed, and Mara heard her voice crack completely. The girl didn't speak, just stared. But her hand, small and trembling, stayed buried in the dog's fur. Mara forced herself to breathe, to think like a nurse instead of a woman whose heart was shattering. Sweetheart, we're here to help. Can you tell me your name? Nothing. Lila was already digging through her bag. She pulled out the last of their food. A sad little package of pandasal wrapped in newspaper. She tore off a piece and held it out, not approaching, just offering. The dog's growl deepened. It's okay, boy, Lila whispered. Look, I'm eating it first, see? Just bread. She took a bite, chewed, swallowed, then extended the rest, the girl's eyes fixed on the bread with the kind of hunger that transcended want and became physical pain. Her hand moved. The dog whined but didn't snap. She took the bread, and the sound she made as she ate it was worse than any cry. More? Lila asked. The girl nodded. They fed her slowly. Pandesal, then the bottled water Mara had been saving for the walk home. The girl drank like she'd been in the container for days. Maybe she had been. Not supposed to be here, she finally whispered, voice like gravel. Where are you supposed to be? Mara asked gently. The girl's eyes went distant. Don't know. They said wait. They said someone would come. But nobody came. Lila looked at Mara over the girl's head, and Mara saw her own horror reflected back. This wasn't an accident. This was abandonment. Maybe worse. What's his name? Lila asked, nodding at the dog. For the first time, something like warmth touched the girl's face. Rusty, because of his color. He came in through a hole. Get me warm. The dog, hearing his name, relaxed his guard slightly. His tail, what was left of it, moved once. Not a wag, just acknowledgement. Mara stood slowly, careful not to startle them, and began examining the container more closely. That's when she saw it. Taped to the wall, hidden behind the boxes, was a plastic envelope. Inside, a leather-bound ledger and a USB drive. Her hands shook as she pulled it free. The ledger fell open to a page of handwritten entries. Dates, container numbers. Port codes, names, Lila, she said quietly. Look at this. But before Lila could respond, voices echoed across the auction yard. Male voices, urgent. Where's the Charlie 9 Delta? Over there. The Dela Cruz sisters took it. Footsteps. Running. Mara shoved the ledger into her bag just as shadows fell across the container opening. Dock workers. 3 of them. One she recognized as part of Victor Reyes's crew. The port magnate owned half the waterfront, ran the other half through favors and fear. Afternoon, ladies, the lead worker said, smile not reaching his eyes. Heard you won yourselves an auction. Mind if we inspect the merchandise? We paid for it, Lila said, moving to block their view of the girl. It's ours, sure. Just following protocol. Boss wants to make sure nothing dangerous got through customs. Mara felt the weight of the ledger in her bag like a bomb waiting to detonate. Whatever was in those pages, these men didn't want it found. The girl's hand found Lila's, the touch so tentative it barely registered. But Lila felt it. Looked down, and something fundamental shifted in her face. Step aside, miss, the worker said. Voice hardening. No. The word hung in the air like a thrown knife. Behind them, more voices, growing, the evening crowd leaving the docks, vendors closing up, and above it all, the wail of a siren cutting through the salt air. Someone had called the police. The police cruiser's lights painted the auction yard in alternating red and blue, turning the rusted containers into a carnival of shadows. Captain Yvonne Von Cruz stepped out first, all crisp uniform and hard eyes. 2 officers flanked her, hands resting on their belts. Not threatening. Not yet, but behind them a crowd was forming. Dock workers, vendors, the curious and the bored. News traveled fast in a port town. Girl in a container. The phrase passed from mouth to mouth like a secret that wanted to be screamed. Dela Cruz sisters, Von said, voice carrying the weight of 1,000 custody battles. Need you to step out of the container slowly. Mara climbed out first, bag clutched tight. The ledger felt like it was burning through the canvas. She'd seen Captain Von before. Everyone had. The woman who kept the peace between Reyes's empire and the law. A tightrope walker who'd never fallen because she'd learned exactly how much she could bend before breaking. Lila stayed inside with the girl and Rusty. Captain, Mara said, keeping her voice level. There's a child in here. She's dehydrated, possibly hypothermic. She needs medical attention. Is she yours? The question landed like an accusation. She was in the container we purchased. Von's expression didn't change, but something flickered behind her eyes. You're telling me you bought a shipping container with a child inside? We didn't know, Mara said quickly. We opened it 15 minutes ago. She was alone, except for the dog. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. Someone laughed. The sound was ugly. Human trafficking, a voice called out. Probably running a whole operation. That's not Mara started, but Vaughn raised a hand. Everyone quiet. The captain moved toward the container. Miss, I need you to come out with the child. Lila appeared at the opening. The girl pressed against her side, Rusty's muzzle pushing out between them. The dog's growl was constant now, a low warning that vibrated through the air. The crowd pressed closer. Phones came out. Cameras pointed. In the back, Mara spotted a teenager with a tripod set up. Jax Mercado, the kid who live-streamed everything from cockfights to market disputes. His subscriber count was small but dedicated, and he was recording. It's okay, sweetie, Lila was saying softly to the girl. These people are going to help you find your family. Don't have family, the girl whispered. Everyone has someone. They left me. The crowd heard it. Mara watched the mood shift from suspicion to something more complicated. Pity mixed with fascination. The ugly hunger of people who'd found entertainment in someone else's tragedy. Then Victor Reyes's men pushed through. 4 of them. The lead worker from earlier plus 3 others. Bigger. The kind who got paid to intimidate. Captain, the lead worker said, all false respect. Mr. Reyes sent us. That container belongs to his shipping line. There's been some kind of mix-up. Vaughn's jaw tightened. Your boss can file a claim with the auction house. Right now, I'm dealing with a child welfare situation. Mr. Reyes is very concerned about the child's safety. He wants to make sure she's returned to the proper authorities through the proper channels. Translation, they wanted the girl. And whatever else was in that container, Mara felt the ledger burning hotter. Whatever was in those pages, it was enough to send 4 of Reyes's muscle down here within minutes of police arrival. Enough to risk this public confrontation. The girl's eyes fixed on the men, and pure terror flooded her face. She tried to step back, but there was nowhere to go. Rusty's growl became a snarl. Mina, the girl's voice was barely audible. My name is Mina. Okay, Mina, Vaughn said gently. I'm going to make sure you're safe. But I need you to come with me to the station so we can figure out where you belong. No! Mina's hand gripped Lila's shirt. Can't go with them. Sweetheart, these are police officers, not them. Mina pointed at Reyes's men. Them, I know them. They were at the place, before. The crowd went silent. Even the waves seemed to quiet. Vaughn turned slowly to face the workers. What place? Oh, kid's confused, the lead worker said, but sweat beaded his forehead. Traumatized. Saying crazy things. She seems pretty specific to me. Tension crackled through the air like lightning looking for ground. Mara saw Vaughn's hand drift toward her weapon. Saw the workers shift their weight. Saw Jax zoom in with his phone camera, capturing every second, and then Mina did something that changed everything. She stepped forward, out of the container, into the wash of police lights and camera flashes. A 9-year-old girl who'd been abandoned in a steel box, surrounded by strangers and danger, making the kind of choice most adults never find the courage for. She walked to Lila, slipped her small, dirty hand into Lila's larger one, looked up at her sister's shocked face, and said loud enough for the whole crowd to hear, 8. The word meant sister, but it meant more than that. It meant chosen. It meant protection. It meant I am claiming you, and you are responsible for me now, and everyone here is my witness. Lila's eyes went wide, then filled. She looked at Mara, panic and hope and terror mixing in her expression. Mara felt the moment balance on a knife's edge. They could walk away. Could tell Vaughn to take the girl. Could disappear into the crowd and let someone else fight this battle. But Mina's hand was in her sister's, and Rusty had pressed himself against both of them. One last defense against a world that had shown him nothing but cruelty until these 2 foolish women had opened a rusted box looking for treasure. The crowd waited. Vaughn waited. Reyes's men waited, and Lila Dela Cruz, who'd spent her whole life being responsible and careful and choosing survival over risk, made the most irresponsible decision of her entire life. She stepped forward and took Mina's other hand. Yes, she said clearly. 8. The crowd erupted. Jax's livestream view counter jumped. Vaughn closed her eyes briefly like a woman watching a disaster unfold in slow motion. And somewhere in the crowd, someone started clapping. slowly at first. Then others joined. Not everyone, but enough. Tita Sol's voice cut through the noise. Well, I guess that settles that, but everyone knew it settled nothing. The real fight was just beginning. Tita Sol's boarding house smelled like sampaguita and old wood, the kind of place where walls held memories and floors creaked with judgment. She led them up the narrow stairs without a word, past the other boarders who pressed themselves against doorframes to watch the procession. Two desperate sisters, one dirt-streaked child, one limping dog, a scandal in motion. Third door, Tita Sol said, unlocking a room barely large enough for the single bed and wooden chair crammed inside. Bathrooms shared. Down the hall. Don't let the dog make a mess. Tita, Mara started, but the older woman held up a hand. I don't want to hear it. Not tonight. Her voice was sharp, but her eyes lingered on Mina's face. On the way, the girl's fingers hadn't released Lila's hand since the dock. You've made your bed. Now you'll sleep in it, literally. She left, her footsteps heavy on the stairs. Lila knelt beside Mina, who stood frozen in the center of the room like someone afraid to take up space. Hey, you okay? Stupid question. The girl was covered in grime, shaking despite the humid heat, and had just publicly claimed two strangers as family in front of half the town. Okay wasn't in her vocabulary, but Mina nodded anyway. The automatic response of someone who'd learned that admitting pain changed nothing. Rusty collapsed near the door, nose pointed toward the hallway. Still on guard, even as exhaustion dragged at him, Mara set down her bag and immediately pulled out the ledger. Her hands trembled as she opened it, page after page of shipping manifests. Container numbers, dates going back 3 years, port codes from Manila, Jakarta, Singapore, and beside each entry dollar amounts that made her stomach turn. Lila, she whispered. Look at this! But Lila wasn't listening. She'd found a bucket and cloth and was gently wiping Mina's face, murmuring soft reassurances that everything would be okay now. The lie hung in the air like smoke. Mara wanted to scream at her sister's naivete, wanted to shake her and demand she understand what they'd just done. They'd claimed a child who didn't belong to them, a child who came with a ledger that could bring down a man who owned this town. Instead, she kept reading. The entries were meticulous, clinical. Each one represented human cargo. She could tell by the codes, by the amounts, by the notes in the margins written in cramped handwriting. Delivered, held, disposed, disposed. Her nurse's training made her imagine what that word meant in practice. Made her see the bodies that disappeared into the ocean, or shallow graves or furnaces when the merchandise became inconvenient. Mara. Lila's voice pulled her back. She's saying something. Mina sat on the edge of the bed now, clean-faced, looking even younger without the dirt. People in uniforms, she said quietly. In the other containers. The ones that don't open. What people, baby? Lila asked. The ones who don't wake up. Ice water in Mara's veins. Mina, did you see someone hurt people? The girl's eyes went distant. The way trauma survivors looked when they retreated into themselves. Uncle Vic said they were sleeping. Said they were going somewhere better. But they smelled wrong, like the fish market when the power goes out. Lila's face had gone white. Uncle Vic. Mara pressed, even though she already knew. Mr. Reyes, he told me to call him that. He was nice, gave me candies. Said my mama asked him to watch me while she worked. Mina's voice dropped to almost nothing. But Mama never came back. A knock at the door made them all jump. Rusty surged to his feet, snarling. Mara shoved the ledger under the mattress and moved to the door. Who is it? Tariq from the docks. She knew the name. The quiet forklift operator who kept his head down and his mouth shut. The kind of invisible man who saw everything because nobody bothered to hide things from him. She opened the door a crack. Tariq stood in the dim hallway, looking over his shoulder like a man being hunted. He was maybe 40, weathered by sun and manual labor, with the careful posture of someone used to making himself small. You shouldn't be here, Mara said. Neither should you. Can I come in? Every instinct screamed no, but something in his eyes made her step aside. Tariq slipped in and closed the door quickly. He looked at Mina and his expression crumpled. God, she's real. I thought maybe the guys were exaggerating. You knew about her? Lila's voice was sharp. No, not her specifically. But I knew about the containers. He pulled a flash drive from his pocket. That ledger you found? There's more. Digital copies. Warehouse locations, photos. I've been collecting evidence for 6 months. Why? Mara demanded. Because 3 years ago, my niece disappeared from her village in Mindanao. She was promised a job in Manila. Factory work, good pay. She was 17. His jaw worked. I found her name in a shipping manifest. Container never made it to Manila. Listed as lost at sea. The room fell silent except for Rusty's low growl. How did you get this? Mara held up the flash drive. I fix things. Machines, computers. Mr. Reyes's men think I'm too stupid to understand English. They leave their laptops open while I'm working on the forklifts. He smiled bitterly. I understand English just fine. Why give it to us? Because whatever you found, it scared them. I've been waiting 3 years for something to crack Reyes's armor. You two just drove a crowbar through it. He moved toward the door. That container wasn't supposed to exist. It was marked for disposal. Should have been compacted last month. Someone forgot to finish the job. Mina was supposed to die, Lila said flatly. Tariq didn't deny it. The ledger and the drive together might be enough. But you need somewhere safe to store them. Somewhere Reyes can't reach. Where? Mara asked. Father Ben's church. He's no friend of Reyes. He just can't prove anything. Not yet. Tariq opened the door, checked the hallway. I work the morning shift tomorrow. 7 a.m. The cameras on the South Dock have blind spots. If you need to move the girl, that's your window. Why are you helping us? Because I couldn't save my niece. His voice cracked. Maybe I can help you save her. He left as quietly as he'd come. Mara looked at Lila, at Mina curled on the bed with Rusty pressed against her side, at the flash drive in her hand that felt like a live grenade. What do we do? Lila whispered. For once, Mara didn't have an answer. Morning came too fast and brought nothing good with it. Jax Mercado's livestream had gone viral overnight. 300,000 views, 5,000 shares. The comment section was a war zone of speculation and accusation. Half the town called the sisters heroes. The other half called them traffickers, staging an elaborate scam. Victor Reyes had issued a statement, carefully worded, deeply concerned about the child's welfare, fully cooperating with authorities, troubled by the sisters' refusal to let proper channels handle the situation. He'd even offered to pay for Mina's care at a private facility. The trap was perfectly baited. We need to move, Mara said, shoving clothes into her bag. Now. Lila was trying to coax Mina into eating the pandesal Tita Sol had left outside their door. The girl picked at it like a bird, barely consuming anything. Where do we go? Lila asked. Father Ben's. Tariq said. Tariq could be working for Reyes. Mara stopped, looked at her sister. You think everyone's an enemy now? I think we're 2 women with a kidnapped child, and evidence that could put the richest man in town in prison. Lila's voice was steady, despite the fear in her eyes. Yeah, I think everyone's a potential enemy until proven otherwise. She wasn't wrong. Mara pulled out the ledger and flash drive. We need to look at everything. Before we move, we need to know exactly what we have. Where? We can't use a computer here. Too exposed, Jax, Mina said quietly. Both sisters turned. The boy with the camera. He has computers. Lots of them. How do you know that? Mara asked. I saw his videos before, in the container. Had a phone. Battery died. Mina pulled a small, dead smartphone from her pocket. Found it in the boxes, of course. Even trafficking victims had phones now. Probably how they'd kept the cargo compliant. False promises via text. Threats sent digitally. You think Jax will help us? Lila asked Mina. The girl nodded. He likes being important. This makes him important. Smart kid. Traumatized, certainly, but smart. They found Jax at an abandoned warehouse near the fish market. The building had been condemned 5 years ago after a fire, but teenagers had claimed it as neutral territory. Jax had turned one corner into a makeshift studio. 3 laptops, ring lights, and enough camera equipment to make a documentary. He looked up from his editing when they entered, and his face split into a grin. The famous sisters. Come to grant me an exclusive interview? We need your help, Mara said. My help costs. How much? Not money. Jack stood, all 16 years of him vibrating with barely contained energy. Access. I want the full story. Everything. When this breaks, I want to be the one who broke it. People could die, Lila said. People are already dying. I saw the ledger in your bag at the dock. I know what this is about. He looked at Mina. I also know you're trying to save her. So yeah, I'm in. But I get the story, Mara wanted to argue. Wanted to protect them all from the exposure. But they needed someone with technical skills. Someone young enough to be underestimated. Deal, she said. Jax plugged in the flash drive. His fingers flew across the keyboard. Files opened. Spreadsheets, photos, video files that made Mara look away after 3 seconds. Holy hell, Jax breathed. This is everything. Routes, payments, bank accounts. He opened another file. Warehouse addresses? Oh man. One of these is in San Fernando. I know this place. It's supposed to be a refrigerated storage facility. For what? Lila asked. According to the city permit, fish. He pulled up photos. These don't look like fish. They didn't. They looked like people. Dozens of them. Packed into rooms with bare mattresses on the floor. The photos were dated. The most recent was 2 weeks old. Mina, Mara said gently. Do you recognize this place? The girl nodded, face pale. Before the container. They kept us there. Said we were waiting for our jobs to be ready. Who's us? Me and Anya, my twin. Mina's voice barely registered. We were together until the trucks came. They put me in one container, her in another. Said we'd meet at the other side. Lila pulled Mina close. Where was the other side? Don't know. They didn't say. Jax was already pulling up more files. Here, shipping manifests that match the ledger entries. Most of these containers went to Saudi Arabia, Malaysia, Dubai. He paled. Domestic labor. That's what they called it. Modern slavery. That's what he meant. We have to go to the police, Lila said. Captain Vaughn. Mara shook her head. She's in Reyes's pocket. Maybe, or maybe she just needs proof solid enough that she can't ignore it. Lila looked at Jax. Can you copy all of this? Multiple copies? Already doing it. A car engine rumbled outside, close, too close. Rusty's hackles rose. He moved to the door, that low warning growl starting deep in his chest. Jax killed the lights. They all froze. Footsteps, multiple sets, heavy, deliberate. They're doing a sweep, Jax whispered. Reyes's guys. They've been checking all the usual spots since yesterday. Looking for us? Lila asked. Looking for anything that makes them look bad, Mara's mind raced. They had minutes at best. How many exits? 2, front and the loading dock. Which one is closest to the church? Loading dock. But it's a straight shot across open ground. They'll see you. Then we make noise in the other direction. Mara looked at Jax. How much do you want this story? What do you need? A distraction. 5 minutes, Jax grinned. It was the kind of grin that made Mara understand how he'd built a following. Fearless and slightly unhinged, I can give you 10. The explosion of sound came from the front of the warehouse. Jax had rigged his speakers to blast air horn sounds and car alarms at maximum volume. The kind of cacophony that demanded investigation. Voices outside shouted. Footsteps pounded toward the source. Go! Jax hissed, shoving the flash drive into Mara's hand. I've got backups. They can't delete what they can't find. They ran. Mara led, Mina between her and Lila, Rusty bringing up the rear. The loading dock door shrieked when Mara shoved it open. Rust and disuse, making it fight every inch. Behind them, men were shouting. The distraction wouldn't last long. The church was 3 blocks away. Might as well have been 3 miles. The morning streets were filling with workers and vendors. Everywhere, eyes. Everywhere, phones. They made it 1 block before the first person recognized them. That's them. The sisters from the video. Mara didn't slow down. Couldn't. She heard Lila's breathing harsh behind her, heard Mina's small gasps of effort. 2 blocks. The church spire visible now above the buildings. A man stepped into their path. One of Reyes's dock workers. Ladies, Mr. Reyes would like a word. Rusty lunged, teeth flashing. The man stumbled back and they ran past. More voices. More phones. The street was becoming a gauntlet. Then Father Ben was there. standing on the church steps like a shepherd, calling in lost sheep. "Here, quickly!" They burst through the heavy wooden doors, and Ben slammed them shut. Through the ancient deadbolt, pressed his back against the wood like his body alone could hold back what was coming. "Well," he said, breathing hard. "This is exciting." Despite everything, Lila laughed. It sounded slightly hysterical. "Father, we need—" Mara started. "Sanctuary. I know, old tradition. Still technically legal." He looked at Mina. "Hello, child. Are you hurt?" Mina shook her head. "Hungry?" She nodded. "I can work with that. Come." He led them through the nave, past the altar, into the small room behind, where priests kept their vestments and secrets. "No one comes back here except me. You'll be safe for a few hours at least." "Hours isn't enough," Mara said. "It's what we have." Ben opened a small refrigerator and pulled out food. Rice, dried fish, yesterday's lumpia. He set it before Mina like an offering. "Eat, child. Whatever's happening, it happens better on a full stomach." While Mina ate, Mara showed Ben the ledger and flash drive. Watched his face age a decade as he read. "I knew," he said finally. "Not the details, but I knew. The donations were too generous, too consistent. Blood money always spends easily." He looked at them. "What do you need from me?" "Hide the evidence. If something happens to us, nothing's happening to you. Not in my church. Father, no." His voice carried the authority of a man used to being obeyed by God himself. "You brought that child into the light. You don't get to disappear into the dark now. We fight. Together." A phone rang. Ben's. He answered, listened, his face darkening. "I see, yes, thank you." He hung up. "That was Tita Sol. Captain Vaughn is at the boarding house. She has a warrant for your arrest. Kidnapping, extortion, fraud." "Reyes moved fast," Lila said. "He's scared. Scared men make mistakes." Ben pocketed his phone. "But he's also powerful. We need more than evidence. We need the town to care more about truth than comfort." "How?" Mara asked. "The festival tomorrow, Bay of Blessings." Ben's eyes glinted. "Reyes gives his annual address. 20,000 people attend. He stands on that stage like a king, bestowing gifts on peasants. You want us to confront him publicly? I want you to show the town who he really is, in front of everyone, on camera. Make it so big he can't bury it. They'll arrest us the moment we show our faces, probably. But you'll have said your piece first. And I'll have hidden copies of everything in places that would take them years to search." He smiled. It was not a comforting expression. "I've been waiting a long time to watch that man fall." Outside, car doors slammed. Voices rose. Someone was trying the church doors. "Father Lau, we know they're in there. Send them out and we can settle this peacefully." It was Captain Vaughn's voice, tired, resigned. Ben looked at Mara and Lila. "Your choice. Run or fight?" Mara thought about her mother, about the sari-sari store and the medical bills, and all the times she'd chosen safety over risk. She'd spent 31 years being responsible. She looked at Mina, who'd finished eating and was watching them with those two old eyes. A little girl who'd survived being abandoned in a steel box, who'd chosen to trust them when she had every reason to trust no one. "We fight," Mara said. Lila took her hand. "Together." And Rusty, sensing the shift in the room, planted himself between them and the door. One battered dog and 3 desperate women against a man who owned a town. The odds were terrible, but terrible odds were better than no chance at all. The Bay of Blessings Festival transformed the waterfront into a carnival of denial. Banners bearing Victor Reyes's face hung from every lamppost. His smile benevolent, his eyes watching. Food stalls lined the pier where just 2 days ago the sisters had opened a container and found a child the town wanted to forget. Now that same town danced and ate and pretended everything was fine. Mara watched from behind a fruit vendor's stall, face half hidden by a borrowed baseball cap. Beside her, Lila wore sunglasses despite the overcast sky. They looked like criminals, felt like criminals. But they were here. Mina was safe. Father Ben had hidden her in the choir loft with Rusty and Doc Tamsin, the volunteer clinic nurse who'd examined the girl and documented every sign of neglect and trauma. Evidence that couldn't be dismissed as fabrication. 10 minutes until his speech, Lila whispered. "Jack's in position." Mara spotted the teenager near the main stage, 3 cameras set up at different angles. He'd promoted today's live stream like it was a boxing match. 20,000 people expected to attend in person, maybe 100,000 watching online. Reyes had no idea he was walking into an ambush. "Ready?" Tariq's voice came from behind them. He'd brought something wrapped in cloth. "You'll need this." Mara unwrapped it. A portable speaker, Bluetooth enabled, loud enough to carry across the crowd. "The manifests are on your phone," Tariq said. "Photos, documents, everything. When you play them, everyone sees. If we get close enough," Lila said, "you will." Tariq's expression was grim. "Because I'm going to make sure you do." Before Mara could ask what he meant, Tariq walked away, toward the stage, toward the security barriers where Reyes's men stood in matching polo shirts, pretending to be event staff instead of private muscle. The crowd was thick now, families, children, old women selling sampaguita garlands. The scent of grilled fish and sweet rice cakes filled the air, normal, peaceful, built on bones. The stage lights came up. Music blared. A local singer belted out a patriotic anthem, while dancers in traditional costume spun and leaped. Entertainment before the main attraction. Then Victor Reyes took the stage. The applause was thunderous. He'd earned it in the town's eyes. The scholarships, the community center, the jobs his shipping company provided. He was the man who'd lifted this port from poverty to prosperity. Never mind what he'd shipped to make it happen. "Good morning." His voice carried across the waterfront, amplified and warm. "What a beautiful day to celebrate our community." More cheers. Mara felt sick. 20 years ago, I came to this town with nothing but a dream and determination. Reyes's speech was practiced, smooth. "You welcomed me. You trusted me. And together, we built something extraordinary." Lila gripped Mara's arm. "We have to move now." They pushed through the crowd. Mara clutched the speaker. Her phone was cued to the first video file. A shipping container being opened. Bodies visible inside. The date stamp clear. 3 months ago, they made it halfway to the stage before security spotted them. "There," one of Reyes' men pointed. "The Dela Cruz sisters." Heads turned. The crowd parted like water around rocks. Some faces showed curiosity. Others hostility. Most showed the carefully blank expression of people who decided ignorance was safer than knowledge. 2 security guards moved to intercept. Big men, trained. Then Tariq stepped in front of them. "Mr. Reyes," he shouted, voice cutting across the music. "Mr. Reyes, I have a question." Reyes paused mid-sentence, smiled. The smile didn't reach his eyes. "Of course, my friend. This is a day for community dialogue. Is it true you're under investigation for human trafficking?" The crowd gasped. The music died. Even the dancers froze. Reyes's smile never wavered. "I'm afraid you've been misinformed. There's been an unfortunate misunderstanding involving 2 troubled women who—" "I have the shipping manifests," Tariq interrupted. He pulled out his phone, held it high. "Container numbers, dates, bank transfers. All tied to your company." Security moved toward Tariq, but the crowd was pressing in now, phones out, recording. Jax's cameras captured everything. Mara took her chance. She and Lila pushed to the front. She raised the speaker, connected her phone. "Stop them!" Reyes's composure cracked. Just for a second. Just enough. The video played, loud, clear, unmistakable. A container door opening. The camera shaking. Voices in Tagalog and English mixed together. "How many this time?" 12. 3 didn't make it. Dump them at sea. Mark the container for disposal." The crowd went silent. Then the second video. Mina's face. Recorded yesterday by Doc Tamsin. The girl speaking clearly, listing dates and locations, describing the warehouse. The men in uniform. "The promises made and broken. My name is Amihan Santos. They called me Mina. Mr. Reyes took me and my sister from our village. He said we'd have jobs, food, school. He lied." Reyes stepped back from the microphone. His face had gone white. "This is fabricated. Digital manipulation. Anyone can—" "I have the ledger." Mara's voice cut across his. She held it up. The original, leather-bound and damning. Handwritten. "In your accounting manager's script. 3 years of trafficking routes, names, prices, how much you charged per person. Security was moving now, fast, but Captain Von was there too. She'd been standing at the edge of the stage, watching, waiting, making her choice. She stepped forward, placed herself between the sisters and Reyes's men. "Stand down," she ordered. "Captain, these women are wanted for—" I said, "Stand down." Von's hand rested on her weapon. "Mr. Reyes, I'm going to need you to come with me. We have some questions." "This is absurd. I'm the victim here. These women broke into my property, stole my— A 9-year-old girl was found in your container. Mr. Reyes, dehydrated, traumatized, with a ledger documenting 3 years of illegal activity." Von's voice carried across the silent crowd. "You're under arrest," the crowd erupted. Some cheered. Some shouted denials. Chaos bloomed like fire catching dry wood. Reyes's men moved, not toward the sisters, toward Reyes himself, forming a protective circle. One of them spoke urgently into a radio. "They're going to run," Lila said. "Not if we don't let them." Mara turned to the crowd, to the phones recording, to the thousands watching online. "He's trying to escape. The man who funded your schools with blood money is running." The crowd surged forward, not violent, not yet, but determined. A wall of bodies blocking the stage exits. Jax's live stream counter hit 200,000 viewers. Then Mina appeared. Father Ben must have brought her down, must have decided the moment demanded it. She walked onto the stage, small and brave, with Rusty limping beside her. The crowd fell silent again. Mina walked up to Reyes, looked up at him with those 2 old eyes. "Where's Anya?" Her voice was small but clear. "Where's my sister?" Reyes looked at her, at the cameras, at the crowd, and in that moment, every mask he'd ever worn shattered. "I don't know what you're talking about." "Liar," the word came from Rusty's direction. But it wasn't the dog who'd spoken. A girl stepped out from behind the fruit vendor stalls. 9 years old, identical to Mina, except for the fear written across her face. A woman held her hand. "Doc Tamsin, I found her an hour ago," Doc said. "At the warehouse on San Fernando. The one in the manifests." She was locked in with 14 others. Anya and Mina stared at each other across the stage. Then both girls ran, met in the middle, collapsed into each other's arms, sobbing. The crowd's roar was deafening. Reyes bolted. He didn't make it far, just to the edge of the stage, before Captain Von's officers tackled him. The crowd pressed in, phones held high, capturing every second of Victor Reyes's fall from grace. Mara watched it happen and felt nothing. No triumph, no satisfaction, just exhaustion deeper than bone. Then Reyes's men moved, not the ones in uniform, the others, the ones who'd been scattered through the crowd, the true believers who'd profited from his empire and couldn't afford to see it crumble. They came fast, 6 of them, pushing through the packed bodies toward the stage, toward the twins, toward the evidence. Rusty saw them first. The dog's hackles rose, and he placed himself between the girls and the approaching threat. His growl cut through even the chaos. "Lila!" Mara shouted. Her sister was already moving, pulling both girls behind her, but there was nowhere to go. The stage was surrounded by crowd on 3 sides, and Reyes's men on the 4th. One of the men grabbed for Anya. Rusty lunged. Teeth found flesh. The man screamed and fell back, clutching his arm, but another one was reaching for Mina. Lila threw herself at him. They crashed into the speaker system. Feedback shrieked across the waterfront. Captain Von was shouting orders. Her officers were trying to push through the crowd. But there were too many people. Too much confusion. Tariq appeared from nowhere, threw himself at one of Reyes's men. They went down in a tangle of limbs. Jax kept filming, his camera steady even as violence erupted around him. This was the story. The moment everything broke, then Tita Sul was there. 60-something years old and built like a typhoon. She swung her bag like a weapon, connected with one man's head. He dropped. "You want these girls?" she roared. "You go through me first." Other vendors joined her. The fruit seller, the fishmonger, people who'd been silent for years, who'd known something was wrong but lacked the courage to speak. Now they found it. In defense of two 9-year-olds and the sisters who'd claimed them, the crowd turned, not entirely, not everyone, but enough. A wall of ordinary people standing between children and the men who'd trade them for profit. Reyes's man, who'd grabbed for Mina, released her, stepped back, looked at the crowd and understood he'd lost. Captain Von's officers finally broke through, arrested all 6 men. Read them rights they'd stripped from dozens of victims. The festival was over. The celebration had become a reckoning. Doc Tamsin appeared beside Mara. The girls need medical attention. And the dog. He's bleeding. Mara looked down. Rusty had collapsed near Mina's feet. The fight had taken everything he had left. Blood matted his fur where old wounds had reopened. "No," Mina whispered, dropping to her knees beside him. No. You can't die. You saved me." The dog's tail moved once. Barely. His eyes found hers. And something passed between them. Understanding, maybe. Or goodbye. Someone help him. Anya sobbed. Doc Tamsin was already kneeling, checking the dog's injuries with practiced efficiency. "He needs surgery. Tonight. I know a vet who owes me favors." "We don't have money," Mara said. "I didn't ask if you had money." Doc looked up. "I asked if you wanted him to live." "Yes." The word came from both twins simultaneously. "Then we move. Now." Doc scooped up the dog like he weighed nothing, started pushing through the crowd. "Make a path." The crowd parted. People who'd been filming now helped, creating a corridor. Some pressed money into Mara's hands as she passed. For the girls, for the dog, for speaking up, they made it to Doc's clinic in 10 minutes that felt like hours. The vet was already there, had seen the live stream. "Had the operating room ready. I'll do what I can," she said, taking Rusty from Doc's arms. "But you should prepare the children." "He's in bad shape." Mina and Anya refused to leave the waiting room, sat on the floor, hands clasped, whispering to each other in the secret language twins share. Lila sat with them, exhausted, bruised, but present. Mara stood at the window, watched the sun set over the waterfront. Over the festival that had become a revolution, Father Ben appeared beside her. "You did it. We did it. All of us. The authorities are securing the warehouses. They've found more. More people. More evidence. It's bigger than anyone knew." He paused. "There'll be trials. You'll have to testify. All of you, I know, and the girls. They'll need permanent placement. Bon says the system. They're staying with us." Mara's voice was firm. "However this works legally, they're staying with us." "You're sure?" "You barely know them. I know they called us Ate. I know we claimed them in front of everyone." "That means something?" "It means everything," Ben corrected gently. "But it won't be easy. Nothing worth doing ever is." The surgery took 3 hours. The vet emerged, looking exhausted but cautiously optimistic. "He'll live, probably, if infection doesn't set in, and if he rests." Which, knowing dogs, is unlikely. The twins ran to see Rusty. He was unconscious still, bandaged and fragile, but breathing. Captain Von arrived just before midnight. She looked years older than she had that morning. "I need statements from all of you. Tonight, if possible." "Tomorrow," Mara said. "Tonight we rest," Von studied her, then nodded. "Tomorrow. But there's something you should know. We found shipping records for 47 containers over 3 years. We've accounted for most of the people in them, but not all. How many missing? 12, including adults who were traveling with children." Mara felt the weight of those 12 lives settle onto her shoulders. 12 people they couldn't save. 12 families destroyed. "We'll find them," Von said. It sounded like a promise, or maybe a prayer. She left. The clinic emptied except for the sisters, the twins, and one battered dog who refused to die. Lila looked at Mara across the waiting room. "What now?" "Now we figure out how to be a family. We don't know how to do that. Neither do they." Mara nodded toward the twins, who'd fallen asleep holding hands beside Rusty's recovery crate. "So we learned together." Outside, the town was still processing what had happened. Tomorrow, there would be news crews, investigators, lawyers, the machinery of justice grinding slowly forward. But tonight, there was just this. 2 sisters, 2 girls, One dog, a family born from disaster and desperation, the kind that might actually last. Dawn broke over a changed town. The festival banners still hung from lampposts, but Reyes's face had been torn down or painted over during the night. Graffiti replaced his smile. Justice. Truth. Remember the lost. Mara woke on the clinic floor, neck stiff from sleeping in a chair. Across the room, Lila had curled up with both twins, the three of them tangled together like they'd always been family. Rusty was awake, watching them all with those dark, knowing eyes. "Hey, boy," Mara whispered, moving to his crate. "How you feeling?" His tail moved weakly. Progress. The clinic door opened. Jax entered, looking like he hadn't slept. Behind him was Captain Vaughn, and a woman in a business suit that screamed "Federal Agent." "Sorry to wake you," Vaughn said. She didn't sound sorry. She sounded like someone who'd been up all night, drowning in evidence. "This is Agent Reyes, no relation. She's with the National Bureau of Investigation." Agent Reyes stepped forward. "Ms. Dela Cruz, both of you. We need to talk about witness protection." "What?" Lila sat up, careful not to wake the twins. Victor Reyes wasn't working alone. "We've arrested 17 people so far, but his network extends across 3 countries. Some very powerful people are implicated, which means you're all in danger." "Define danger," Mara said. "The kind where people disappear." Agent Reyes pulled out a tablet, showed them photos. "These are Reyes's known associates. This one runs a shipping conglomerate in Manila. This one's a police colonel. This one's a senator. The faces blurred together, rich, powerful, untouchable, except they'd been touched now. The evidence was public. Jax's livestream had been downloaded millions of times. International news was picking up the story. "You want us to hide," Lila said. "I want you to survive." Agent Reyes's voice softened. "You did something extraordinary. You pulled back the curtain on an empire that's been operating for decades. But empires don't fall quietly. They fight back." "What about the girls?" Mara asked. "They're witnesses too. Primary victims. They'll need protection most of all. And Rusty?" Anya's small voice startled them all. She'd been awake, listening. Mina stirred beside her. Agent Reyes looked at the dog, at the twins, and something in her official expression cracked. "The dog comes too. Where?" Mina asked. "Somewhere safe. New identities. New location. For a few months at least. Until the trials are over." "No." Mara surprised herself with the firmness in her voice. "We're not running. Ms. Dela Cruz, these girls have been running their entire lives. From poverty, from traffickers, from a system that failed them." Mara stood. "We're done running. You want our testimony? You'll get it. But we testify from here, from our home. We don't hide like we did something wrong. Someone will try to kill you. Then you stop them. That's your job, isn't it?" Agent Reyes and Captain Vaughn exchanged a glance. Some wordless communication that ended with Vaughn's slight nod. "We can provide security," Vaughn said. 24-hour protection. But it won't be foolproof." "Nothing is." Lila had joined Mara, standing shoulder to shoulder. "We'll take the risk." Father Ben appeared in the doorway. "They won't be alone. The community will protect them too." Behind him stood Tita Sol, Tariq, Doc Tamsin, Jax, the fruit vendor from the festival, the fishmonger, a dozen others who'd found courage in the chaos. "The sisters are heroes," Tita Sol declared. "Anyone who touches them answers to all of us." It was naive, probably stupid. A town of ordinary people thinking they could stand against organized crime and corruption. But they'd done it once already, at the festival. When the moment demanded it, maybe they could do it again. Agent Reyes sighed. "Against my better judgment, I'll approve it. But the moment there's a credible threat, we'll reconsider," Mara promised. The agent left. Vaughn stayed behind to coordinate security details. Father Ben offered the church community hall as temporary housing until something more permanent could be arranged. The twins ate breakfast like they'd never seen food before. Doc Tamsin checked Rusty's wounds and declared him stable enough to travel. Jax uploaded a new video. Day 2, the aftermath. It went viral within an hour, and slowly the town began to transform. People who'd stayed silent started talking, sharing suspicions they'd harbored for years. pointing investigators toward warehouses and shell companies. The web was unraveling, and every thread pulled revealed more rot. Tariq's niece was found. Not alive. Her remains identified through dental records. She died in a container 3 years ago, just as he'd feared. But at least now he knew. Could grieve properly. Could see the men who'd killed her face justice. The warehouse on San Fernando yielded 32 people, scared, traumatized, but alive. Social workers descended. Immigration lawyers. Human rights advocates. The machinery of rescue grinding slowly forward. Mina and Anya were interviewed gently by specialists trained in trauma. They spoke haltingly about their village. About the man who'd promised their mother work in the city. About the day they'd been separated and locked in different containers. We're safe now. Mina asked Mara afterward. Mara wanted to say yes. Wanted to promise nothing bad would ever happen to them again. But she'd learned that lies, even comforting ones, did more harm than good. You're safer, she said instead. And we're going to keep you as safe as we possibly can. That's a promise I can keep. Mina considered this, then nodded. Okay, that afternoon Von brought paperwork. Temporary guardianship papers. It's not adoption, not yet, but it's legal custody. Judge approved it this morning. Said any sisters brave enough to claim 2 kids in front of that crowd earned the right to raise them. Mara stared at the documents. Her name, Lila's name, and below them a Mihan Santos. Anya Santos. It's real? Lila whispered. It's real. Von almost smiled. Welcome to motherhood. That evening, Reyes made bail, 5 million pesos, posted by parties unknown. He walked out of the police station into a crowd of protesters. Someone threw an egg. It splattered across his expensive suit. He didn't run, didn't hide, just walked to his car with his head high, like a king in exile who believed his kingdom would welcome him back. He was wrong. By midnight, his house was surrounded, not by police, by townspeople. Hundreds of them, holding candles, holding signs, singing hymns and protest songs. They didn't throw stones, didn't break windows, just stood there. A wall of judgment that said, "You're not welcome here anymore." Reyes left before dawn, his car escorted by police to keep him safe from the people he'd claimed to serve. The town watched him go, and in that watching, found something it had lost years ago, its spine. 6 weeks later, the smell of coffee and freshly fried lumpia drifted across the pier where container Charlie 9 Delta had once sat. In its place stood a small wooden structure, half canteen, half community center, painted the color of sunrise. The sign above the door read, "The Rusted Hope." Mara stood behind the counter, hair tied back, apron stained with the honest work of feeding people. Lila managed the books at a corner table, occasionally looking up to shout orders or laugh at customers' jokes, and at a table near the window, Mina and Anya did homework while Rusty dozed beneath their feet, his limp barely noticeable now, his scars hidden under healthy fur. It wasn't the life they'd imagined 6 weeks ago. It was better, quieter, real. The trials were ongoing. Victor Reyes faced 47 counts of human trafficking. His associates were falling like dominoes, each one flipping on the others to save themselves. Agent Reyes called weekly with updates. The network was collapsing, slowly, but collapsing. Father Ben had blessed the canteen 3 weeks ago, calling it proof that hope grows best in broken ground. Tita Sul had cried, though she'd deny it if asked. Tariq had built most of the structure himself, refusing payment, saying only that his niece would have wanted someone to help. Jax's documentary had been picked up by an international streaming service. He was negotiating contracts while finishing high school. He'd promised the sisters a cut of the profits. They'd promised to put it toward the girls' education. Captain Von stopped by most mornings for coffee. She'd been promoted. State investigators had cleared her of corruption charges and recognized her role in bringing down Reyes. She wore the new rank uncomfortably, like someone still learning to trust her own integrity. Doc Tamsin ran a weekly clinic from the canteen's back room. Free health care for dock workers and their families. She'd recruited 2 other nurses. They were building something that looked suspiciously like hope. The community had rallied in ways that surprised everyone. Donations poured in, not from wealthy benefactors, but from ordinary people giving what they could spare. 5 pesos here.
20 there.
It added up. It always did. The door opened, bell chiming. A woman entered, hesitant, holding a small boy's hand. She looked around nervously, like someone who'd been disappointed too many times to trust easily. Lila stood immediately. "Welcome to the Rusted Hope. What can we get you?" "I heard..." The woman's voice was barely audible. "I heard you help people here." "We feed people," Mara said gently. "And sometimes we listen." "Which do you need?" "Both." The woman's eyes filled. "My daughter. She went to Manila for work 6 months ago. I haven't heard from her since. The agency says she's fine, but..." She pulled out a crumpled piece of paper. "This container number was in her last message." "I don't know what it means." Mara and Lila exchanged a glance. They'd been expecting this. Hoping for it, actually. The work wasn't finished. It would never be finished. But they could help. "One person at a time." "Sit down," Mara said. "We'll make some calls." "Lila, get the ledger." The woman sat. The boy climbed into her lap, and Mina appeared beside them with coloring books and crayons. "You can wait with us," she said softly. "It's scary to wait alone." The woman looked at this small girl offering comfort and understanding, and something broke in her face. "Thank you. That's what family does," Anya added, joining her sister. "We learned that. As the afternoon wore on, the canteen filled. Workers on break, vendors closing their stalls, students seeking free Wi-Fi and cheap snacks. It became what they'd hoped it would be, a gathering place, a safe harbor. At sunset, Mara stepped outside to watch the light paint the water gold and crimson. A shipping container drifted past in the distance, carried by the outgoing tide. She watched it until it disappeared beyond the horizon. Some containers held treasure, some held tragedy. Theirs had held both. Lila joined her, slipping an arm around her waist. "You okay, Ate?" "Yeah." Mara leaned into her sister. "I think I actually am." Inside, the twins laughed at something on Anya's phone. Rusty barked once, playfully. The woman with the missing daughter was talking to Captain Von, who'd appeared with files and phone numbers and the grim determination of someone who decided justice mattered more than comfort. This was home now, not the building, the people. The chosen family built from desperation and courage, and the stubborn belief that even rusted, broken things could be transformed into something beautiful. The tide pulled another container out to sea, and Mara let it go. They'd found what they were looking for, not in steel and mystery, but in each other, in the simple act of claiming someone as family and meaning it, in standing up when it would have been easier to sit down, in refusing to look away from suffering just because acknowledging it was uncomfortable. "Ate Mara." "Ate Lila." Mina called from the doorway. "Father Ben brought pancit, and Tita Sol says we're eating like birds and need seconds." "Coming!" they called back in unison. Before going inside, Mara touched the sign above the door. The Rusted Hope, born from the container that almost killed them, named for the dog that saved them. Built by a community that learned courage from 2 desperate sisters who'd gambled everything on a dented box. The rust hadn't been removed. It had been repurposed, transformed, made into something stronger than it had been before, just like them. Inside, their family was waiting, imperfect, wounded, still healing. But theirs, and that was enough, more than enough. It was everything. Up next, we have 2 more incredible stories that are waiting for you. Just click the image you want to watch, and it will take you there. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to subscribe. It would mean a lot.